Hello, growers. If you enjoy podcasts like this one, tune into my podcast In Search of Soil on YouTube for a deep dive into the mysteries beneath our feet. Join me as I explore topics such as mycorrhizal fungi, mushrooms, compost, biochar, and more. It's a soil nerd's dream. We're going deep. We're talking to scientists about all things soil related. Whether you're a seasoned farmer or a gardener just starting out, our podcast has something for everyone. Listen in and grow with us. Check out In Search of Soil on YouTube.
So this goes back to community, in my opinion, because if I were doing this as my own farmer, like just me by myself, and how we started was we would go to one of the local organic mills here, and I would buy bagged feed for our chickens, for example. Bagged feed is at this local mill is like 900. I'm giving you ballpark numbers here, but it's like $950 a ton for for 1 ton of bagged feed, and that's so that. Again, I don't have a truck, I don't have a forklift, I don't have a feed bin, anything like that. So I was buying bagged feed, and they're not going to deliver it to my house for that, for that small of an amount for 1 ton. They're not going to run a truck of loose feed out here. But now that we have a network, I just went out and met with them, and we can bring feed down into the low 700s per ton. And so you're talking about a $200 difference. Now that we've grown to some semblance of a scale, because we have multiple farms, they can run and make deliveries to multiple farms for them to start, scaling down. Well, for me, it's scaling up the quantity, and for them, it's scaling up how much money they'll make in the long run. And so they're willing to bring their costs down fairly substantially now that they know they're going to get multiple tons every couple of weeks from us. And so that's where I think, the small farmer really starts to get eaten alive a little bit, is sort of the again, if every one of the farms that we partner with, if they all had to have QuickBooks, if they all had to have, marketing systems, if they all had to have each piece of the puzzle, then they would all be scrapping by basically. But if we incur a little bit more of the costs and or if we can bring everyone together to make things more effective, cartons, for example, if you buy egg cartons, like let's say you go on like eggcartons.com or whatever, and you buy some egg cartons, those egg cartons that you buy will probably cost you, I don't know, 60, 70, 80 cents, maybe $1 per carton that you're going to pay.
Yeah.
For us, it costs us like 20 cents a carton, because we have the ability to buy in truckloads worth of cartons rather than, a UPS box worth of cartons. And so all of those numbers start to, whenever you're factoring in your per dozen your cost of goods sold, all of those numbers start to come down substantially once you start increasing your scale. And so, for your friends, they're probably doing it at just the right scale, where they're still incurring the cost of a small farm, but they're not really incurring the benefit of, being a little bit bigger yet. And so that's where I think partnership comes in, is because, if them and 2 other farms could partner together and they could get their carton costs cut down by half, and they could get their feed costs cut down by half, or maybe not half, by 20%, well, then now that starts to, there's your profit. That's where your profits are built right there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because I just did some quick back of the napkin math, and and there remind me again what you were saying, that you were when you were buying something from the mill, what was your per ton price that you were originally? $950.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
it's like $750 now.
Yeah, and so there's and so they're double that, more or less, buying bags of, maybe a pallet's worth of 50-pound bags, and then having those trucked to the farm and then dropped off, and then, or schmucks like me had to schlep them all the way from the gate into the barn, or, whatever, throw them in the back of the truck or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah. And they're still paying double the cost. And then now at your scale, you're able to sort of cut that down, by an additional 15 or 20%.
Yeah.
And so scale really, really does make a difference. Or go ahead. I thought you were going to say.
Well, I was just going to say, I don't know what you're sort of most of your listeners, what the sort of population demographic looks like, but if it's for folks who, are in the process, making, starting up a small farm and kind of getting it up, you kind of have to make a decision at some point whether, and this was a conversation I had with Joel Salatin just a couple of weeks ago, and it really kind of like keyed me into our direction too. Was whenever we first started, we were very much the craft. We were selling eggs for like $9, $12 a dozen, and so that's like the sort of craft end of things. But now that we've partnered with other farms, we're starting to get into major retailers. We're moving in the sort of direction of the commodity, and you sort of have to decide which one you're going to be. You can't really straddle both. You can't be like, well, I'm going to compete with Vital Farms on supermarket prices or any of those companies with their pricing structure, and still do it at the sort of craft scale. If you're going to do it at a craft scale, you have to charge craft prices. You have to do $12, $15 a dozen just to make your mark. You're going to, if your goal is to maximize profit while still maintaining the systems, well, then you have to start looking at scale just so that bring down what your cost of goods sold is. And so even thinking about them, if you're doing grass-fed beef or if you're doing a dairy operation or whatever, it's going to be the same no matter what you're starting. Is like, for you, if you're growing vegetables, I don't know what it costs you to get a box to sell your vegetables in, but if you only buy 100 of those boxes a year versus if you bought 10,000 of those boxes of a year, then your price per box inevitably will go down if you increase your scale. And this goes again back to partnership. Is like, well, maybe if you find 3 farmers who are doing the same system as you, and you guys all need boxes, well, then you can just get stickers that say whose box is whose or whatever. But you guys could order them at scale, and then get the benefit of buying 10,000 boxes instead of buying 100 boxes, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I would say the majority of small farms are in that uncomfortable middle point where it's like, we trying to go the craft route. We're selling at farmers markets, we're selling direct to consumer, but we're not so small that we can just sort of pick things up here and there, or we're so specialized where it's like, I can't just go to Tractor Supply and buy a bag of whatever. It's like, for my operation, like I need this 2-ton bag of soil starting mix or seed starting mix, and it's like, because I'm used to it, I know what to expect, and I know sort of the germination rates I'm going to get, and then I'm like, oh well, now I have to invest in $400 to get 2 tons of soil trucked into the farm, and so we're all in this sort of weird place. And because it is a specialized industry, there's not 100, at least around here, there's not 100 different places, within an hour of you that you can order stuff from. So it's like, we're ordering fertilizer and kind of organic pest management stuff from a company in Virginia. And, and it's like, you're going to pay a minimum of $200 in shipping, whether you're, $300 worth of stuff that's shipped in boxes from UPS, or you're going to get an entire pallet load of stuff. And so and so we've started doing that. Me and another farm and a couple other people will all kind of pool in together, and we send a text like, hey, about to place an order. What do you need? Blah, 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 blah. Just Venmo me, whatever, or cut me a and that's made the operation significantly better because I can benefit from sort of that kind of that bulk buying.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I think the more the more small farms start to do that, where they recognize that they can bring their costs down by partnering with other, even if you don't do what we're doing, and you're like a true co-op where everybody's under the same brand name, and you can still keep your own little operation, but you could partner with other folks just to get cartons in, and then everybody puts their own label in. Or if you do dairy, everybody could get their own milk bottles and then just put your own sticker on or something like that, and that would make it a lot more. Yeah, I think for a small farmer, especially if you're really starting out, you got to take a really hard look at your cost of goods sold, and really get a good understanding that, particularly if you're doing it by yourself, there's going to be insurance, there's going to be QuickBooks, if you print your invoices for some of your for some of your folks, there's going to be the cost of the paper, or if you hire a delivery driver, if this is one thing that whenever we hired is like workers' comp, extra auto insurance, and then you bring on another vehicle, and then all of a sudden those sort of hidden costs start to add up really quick. And so take a really, really hard look if you're, just starting a farm or just starting to get into farming, about what those kind of hidden costs are going to be that you might not expect, because that's what will really eat into your margins as well.
Hey there, want to spend less time pulling weeds? Check out Soil Shield by Modern Grower. It's the pre-cut landscape fabric solution to help you drastically reduce weed pressure. Just roll it out, staple it down, and plant. Then let it do the work for you. Say goodbye to endless weeding and hello to more free time. Plus, it's high quality, durable, and will last for years, saving you time and money in the long run. It's available in a variety of row and hole spacings to accommodate all the crops that vegetable farmers grow. Learn more about Soil Shield landscape fabric at shop.moderngrower.co or using the link below.